Welcome to Geek on Film with your host, Robbie Holmes. Here we are, folks. It's the Oscars. Here we go. I'm running through my previews. Let's see how many I get wrong. My name is Robbie Holmes, and I'm your host for this week's Oscar preview on geekonfilm.com. Let's start at the top of the awards list. Makeup and hairstyling. The choices are Golda, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Society of the Snow. My choice here is going to be Poor Things. I'm really impressed with what they pull off across the board. But I think the Oscars are going to probably go and zig a little bit and choose Society of the Snow. We'll see. There's no bad choices here. I haven't seen Goldie yet, but everything I've heard is it's fantastic. It's one of the few films I haven't seen. And I will say Oppenheimer and Maestro both have awesome makeup and hairstyling. I think Maestro is the spoiler here. I really think we have a shot of Society of the Snow coming from the Oscars. They've gotten a lot of attention at a lot of press events. Next up is production design. We've got Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. I'm going to go with Barbie. I think the production design here is one of the things I think of when I think about Barbie. I think of those plastic waves. I think of the Mojo Dojo Casa House. I think of all of those aspects of what makes this film what it is. I think the Oscars are probably going to go with Oppenheimer, and I don't think that's a bad choice. Across the board here, the production design on Napoleon is surprising, so good. And then Killers of the Flower Moon is hard to argue against. It is so beautiful. I think you'll hear me talk about that more later. Okay, for sound, The Creator, Maestro, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One, Oppenheimer, and Zone of Interest. For me, the sound is hands down Zone of Interest. The Zone of Interest uses sound to tell its story. It is intricate and the only way the story works in the way that it was created. It is unbelievable. If you haven't seen it, I know it's heavy. You should watch it. I think the Oscars are likely going to go Maestro here. This seems like a pretty easy way for them to recognize this film. Next up is film editing. Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. This one for me, I'm zagging a little. I'm heading towards Poor Things. I think the amazing use of editing, especially from like Gonzo images to back to Bella and watching Bella and cutting to and from Bella as she's interacting with the world, it really adds to the sense of what is happening in her evolution. And I think it is one of the most interesting film editing choices I've seen this year. I think the Oscars are likely going to go with Killers of the Flower Moon. I mean, the Academy is really, this is no surprise. I think it is a great way to acknowledge this film. Moving on to documentary short film, the nominees are The ABCs of Book Banning, The Barber of Little Rock, Island in Between, The Last Repair Shop, and Nene and Wapo. I think this is a really good year of documentary shorts. The only one that I think I didn't vibe with was Island in Between. It felt more like something I would have seen sort of as an interstitial between two longer documentaries. The others had really full, deep stories in a short period of time. I think The Island in Between probably needed to be longer. For me, the choice is The Barber of Little Rock. I was really blown away by that documentary. I think it exposed me to something I haven't seen. This is something you're going to hear me say about documentaries always. I want to be exposed to something that I'm not aware of and that I can now empathize with more. Roger Ebert called films empathy machines, and I think documentaries are empathy engines. They drive you to learn more about a place, and that makes you empathize more. I think the documentary short is going to go from the Academy to The Last Repair Shop. It's a very good documentary, but it's made by somebody who's very well known in the industry of documentaries. It's also about the LA Unified School District's repair shop for musical instruments. And it's about how it helps those kids. It's about the humans that are in that place. It's well done. It's very moving. The other possibility here is the ABCs of book banning. I think that is a very straightforward, surprising documentary using children to talk about books that have been banned and having them describe it and be saddened by not having them available. Next up for the awards will be live action short film. This is filled with great films. The After, Invincible, the Night of Fortune, Red, White, and Blue, and the wonderful story of Henry Sugar. I liked all of these films a lot, to be honest. I think Red, White, and Blue is very commercial feeling and very polished. I think The After is also extremely polished, but I don't think it feels as solid a film. It feels manipulative by the way it shows events early, which is part of what it has to do. It has to set up the world, but it just didn't resonate with me the way others did. Night of Fortune's really impressive. It's such a small and intimate story. I was really blown away by Invincible. It's the story of a 14-year-old who's in detention, who gets to go home for a weekend, and then will do anything to get back there. And it's really moving and powerful. And the way the actor who's portraying the child who's in trouble and how they vacillate between tough and scared and vulnerable is really impressive. Just a nod towards Nine and Wapo. Sean, who created this, had a very good week. The week this was nominated is also the week that his film Die Day debuted at Sundance. I think that the Oscars are finally going to recognize Wes Anderson. I think the wonderful story of Henry Sugar is likely going to be the winner here. I think it's a career culmination, and it's sad that it has to come through this vector. I am a huge Wes Anderson fan, and I think this is a way for them to really make up. Not to say that the wonderful story of Henry Sugar isn't awesome. I think it is an interesting way for him to win his first Oscar. Okay, let's move on. Animated short film. This is a tough race because it's hard to see a bunch of these. Letter to a Pig and 95 Senses I've seen, and the other three I have not. Our Uniform, Pachyderm, War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko. I think from what I saw, Letter to a Pig is very, very good. It's moving, it's emotional, it uses a really cool art style. I really liked it. It's heavy material, but I think it's done really well. I think cynically, the academies are going to go for War is Over because it'll say John and Yoko. I haven't seen it yet. There's like three additional shorts about the short. It's not able to be seen on the internet right now. So let's move on to costume design. Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. For me, I think it is Killers of the Flower Moon. When I think of this film, there's two things I think of. We'll talk about the second in a minute. This one, I think of those amazing costumes of the Osage, but also of the period garb that is being created. It's so real feeling and it sets you in the world they're a part of. Just the costumes that are being worn by Robert De Niro and by Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily and her whole family, it's really astounding. I think this might be one of the places where the Academy recognizes Barbie. I think it's an easier sell. I think it's going to be sad if it doesn't go to Killers, but I think Barbie has so many amazing individual items that are created as costumes from classic nostalgia berries. You've got all of the costumes and outfits that Barbie wears that are called out throughout the movie. And then when Ken is throwing her clothes, they all stop, and it's a beautiful moment to show off these amazing costumes. So I would not be surprised. I think the dark horse here is probably Napoleon, because it is a period piece. It is beautiful. There's so many costumes on display that sometimes the most costumes feels like is what it wins. Let's move on to cinematography. This one has a surprise in it. El Conde. It is not a film that was on my radar, but let's keep going. Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. The El Conde surprised me because I watched it and I can see why it got nominated. It's beautifully shot. The choices that are made to make it black and white, the textures that gets, the choices of where they put the camera, how they show the vampirism, it's really amazing. It's surprising. I think it's like a three and a half star movie that is really batting out of its league when it comes to the way it's shot. It's gorgeous. For me, I think it's probably going to be Killers of the Flower Moon. I mentioned earlier there are two things I think of. The other is the cinematography. When I think of Killers of the Flower Moon, I think of that the framing and the shot around the Osage finding the oil in the first 2 minutes and dancing around it in the hail of oil. And then I think of Leo's character arriving and them driving to De Niro's house, and that long stretch with all those oil derricks, and how it's watching the world be decimated by this modern machinery. And it really just is telling you the story that we're about to see by the choices that are being made in the camera and the angles. I was really blown away by both of them. I think the Academy is probably going to go to Oppenheimer. This is not a bad choice. This film is amazing. It looks beautiful. The choices of creating a world that is using two different framing devices for black and white and color, and that this film had to create a new film stock for IMAX specifically to shoot the black and white is really unbelievable. It literally is pushing forward cinematography. Let's jump over to documentary feature film. 20 Days in Mariupol, Bobby Wine, the People's President, The Eternal Memory, Four Daughters, and To Kill a Tiger. I've seen four of these. I didn't see Four Daughters yet. It just landed to be available this week, and I have been prioritizing other things. It is definitely in my queue. I have heard about it, so I don't think it's going to influence me. For me, I think the film here that I will put my weight behind is 20 Days in Mariupol. It is an astoundingly shot documentary. I can't believe the footage they got. I can't believe someone survived and was part of all of that. And that they were able to complete this documentary is unreal. The Eternal Memory is extremely small and beautiful, delicate story of somebody in dementia, somebody who's not remembering their life, and with their wife, and trying to every day create a world that he remembers or remind him of. It's beautiful. It's very very moving. To Kill a Tiger is really heavy. It's the story of a young girl in India who's raped. The story of her and her family standing by her while they try to bring the men to justice that raped her. It's powerful. It's really well done, and I think it's really awesome that To Kill a Tiger is nominated because it is going to get more eyeballs on it. When I talked earlier about empathy engines, I think this is one of those films that really falls into that. But I think for me, it's 20 Days of Mariupol is the one I think should win, and I think the Academy will also recognize it. We're up to original song. It never went away from American Symphony. I'm Just Ken from Barbie. What Was I Made For from Barbie? The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot. Wahakazi, a song for my people from Killers of the Flower Moon. I think this should go to Wahakazi. I am so impressed with that song, how it's used in the film. And some of the story of it being complicated just to nominate it because the song is not written down. So they had to find a way to write down this song in order for the nomination to go through. I think that the Academy will recognize what was I made for. That song is a cottage industry into itself. It has won so many awards. I'm a huge Billie Eilish fan. I love that song, and I love what it's doing in Barbie. I think it's the emotional crux of the movie, and I would not be surprised if the Academy's acknowledge it. It's felt a little inevitable for the last 3 months. No negative here. I love that song. Let's move on to original score. American Fiction, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. I think in this case, I'm going to say Killers of the Flower Moon should win this award. I think it is an amazing score. I think when I think of the film, I think of the costumes, I think of the cinematography, I think of how it made me feel, and I think the score is subtly adding to that. I think we might see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny get the Academy Award here. I think it's a way to acknowledge John Williams, who has been nominated so many times, but also one last award. I think this is what we're likely going to see. No complaints. Poor Things score is unique. It's different. I just heard that it was actually written before the film was created, which is amazing. I cannot believe that these things matched up the way they did. And I think Oppenheimer's score is powerful. It's setting the tension. So there's nothing here that surprises me. American Fiction was a good film. The score is not something that resonates with me. Well, it's not that it doesn't resonate. It just that I don't remember it, and I just watched that film twice. I'm about to see it again today. I might change my opinion, but I think for now it's Killers of the Flower Moon. Visual effects: The Creator, Godzilla minus one, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, Napoleon. I've gone back and forth on this. I think I'm going to flip for the last time to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think the effects that were made for the creatures, for the animals, and for the planets are all some of the most amazing things I saw last year. And I feel like everybody's bias against comic book films and their nomination in the academies has left me scared or leaning away from this film. I have finally decided to come back to it. It's a last minute change. The other film I was behind and I would love to see win here is Godzilla minus one, because the visual effects were produced by the director of the film. So he would also, this is the only way that he got nominated. And I think this little film that could has created the best Godzilla film I've ever seen. So, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is my choice. I think this might be the one and only place that the Academy acknowledges Napoleon. The effects are astounding. They're really grim and gritty and gory at times, powerfully moving in the storytelling. The sequence of the battle that takes place on the frozen lake is something that is a combination of real, practical, and visual effects. I saw the reel on it. I was so blown away by what was created and how it was created. I think it is going to be a place where the Academy can acknowledge Ridley Scott's film. Let's move on to original screenplay. This is where things get real complicated, in my opinion. Original screenplay: Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Maestro, May December, and Past Lives. I am in the bag for Anatomy of a Fall. That is my choice here. I just rewatched that film yesterday, and I think the way that script is written and shot and directed is unreal. I think the story and the beats of creating a woman that you can both admire, be frustrated by, not trust, and then care about is all in the screenplay. I think Sandra Hüller is amazing, but we'll get back to that. I think this might be where May December gets recognized by the Academy. I think the script for that film is really unbelievable. I think it is unique and different, and it is playing that line of like reality versus reality TV versus campiness, and I think it's really clever. I think I would really like this acknowledgement. I think it would be really cool. I think original screenplays, though, you've got other people here that really deserve a nod. The Holdovers is a very traditional 70s feeling play um, set in a screen. I really liked it. I think it's great, but I also don't think it holds a candle to Anatomy of a Fall. Maestro, I think, is an interesting one. I think it is created with so much love and care for the character and for the family. There's no negatives here. I think it's a really good screenplay. Past Lives is the one that I have a really hard time not acknowledging. Celine Song wrote this beautifully delicate screenplay, and I think it is one of the most compelling and warm films I've seen in a long time that understands humanity and makes you care within seconds. And I think that is Celine Song's superpower, and it's a combination of her writing and directing. It is a beautiful story and an amazingly delicate and sweet screenplay. Let's move on to adapted screenplay. Chaos Begins, American Fiction, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Zone of Interest. Um, this one I think should go to Cord. I think American Fiction is an unbelievable adapted screenplay. I think what he is able to do and how it's written and the story he's telling is so complex and funny and real. I think it's really beautiful. And I think the fact that it's a first time feature film writer and director, it needs to be acknowledged, similar to Celine Song. I think the Academy might go with Barbie here as a way to acknowledge this amazing script. And it's a way to acknowledge Greta and Noah Baumbach. I would not be surprised if you heard Oppenheimer, given the fact that it is such a tome of a story that has been wrangled and shoved into this adapted screenplay. Let's move on to animated feature film. The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I have not seen The Boy and the Heron. This is definitely a blind spot for me. I am not a Miyazaki person. I have only seen Spirited Away, and I feel like I will someday possibly be sad about not acknowledging this film this year. I hear amazing things. People I trust really love it. I will get there. I promise Studio Ghibli will be something I focus on in the next year. Elemental was a really sweet story. I think it got a lot of negative heat. I don't know why it was not given its druthers. I don't think it was a bad film. I think it was very sweet. I think it was caring. It felt like it was an acknowledgement of the immigrant experience in an animated way that wasn't heavy handed. It was sweet and fun. Um, you should see it. It's cute. Let's skip Nimona. Robot Dreams, I haven't seen. That film is apparently almost like a silent animated film, and I hear it's great. It was at a Middleburg Film Festival, and I optimized for something else. I think this might have been when I saw May December or Saltburn. The last one is Across the Spider Verse, and I think that is the Academy choice. I think it is an easy film to give the award to. It is better than the original, and I loved it. For a long portion of this year, it was the top film I saw. I am still blown away by it every time I turn it on. I'm emotionally moved. I am impressed, and I am flabbergasted by what they're able to pull off in this film. I think the next film is likely going to be better than this film. I have nothing but respect for and love for this film. My choice here is a dark horse choice. It is Nimona. I was blown away by this animated film. I sat down and I went to watch it because it was on this list. Thank you for the nominations. Thank you for the short lists. It made me watch more films. Nimona is beautiful. It is complicated. It is funny. It is biting. I loved this film. You should watch it. You should watch it with your teenagers. It is a complicated and moving story of someone who's different. I want everyone to see this film. That is why I'm shining a spotlight on it and saying it should win the Oscar tonight. Let's move on to Best International Film. Il Capitano from Italy, Perfect Days from Japan, Society of the Snow from Spain, The Teacher's Lounge from Germany, and Zone of Interest from United Kingdom. Full transparency, I have not seen Il Capitano, I have not seen Perfect Days, and I have not seen The Teacher's Lounge. I'm sad. I probably could have seen The Teacher's Lounge at Middleburg. I hear it's really good. I hear it's really small and constrained, and I hear very good things about it. I'm interested to see it. It's kind of like a pressure cooker in a film, is what I hear. Um, Il Capitano, I don't really have any insights into. It is one of those films that's been almost impossible to see. And Perfect Days just became available this last week. I really wish that distribution companies would make these things available so that way the people who are actually watching the Oscars have a chance to understand when something wins that they've never heard of, why it was so good. Don't hold off. Please release these films a month or more before the Oscars. Really, really loved Society of the Snow. It's a hard thing to say I loved, but I am very impressed with that film. I think the practical effects of the crash and the subsequent ways they showed time and that the groupthink and the individuals going out above and beyond to try to keep everyone alive. It's it's a harrowing story. It's a harrowing movie. I just wish there was a little bit more in this film that would allow us to know the characters that were on the plane a little bit more. We get these tiny snippets at the beginning, and then it is the next time we acknowledge them is often when they die or some other thing happens. It's not really able for me as an audience member to track effectively all of the people because it's a large group of people on the plane. It's a hard thing to tackle, I would say. But they did a really good job. It's visually stunning, and it was very moving. This comes down to zone of interest for me. I think I was devastated by this film. I went and saw it by myself. I sat in the theater with about 15 other people, and I walked out of the theater sort of dumbfounded and moved and talked about it with my wife when I got home for about a half an hour. And then it just kept resonating with me. I am in awe of what Jonathan Glazer is able to pull off. He is a unique auteur who has a vision that I don't know that other people could create. I think him and Yorgos Lanthimos are doing some really amazing and interesting film, and I think Zone of Interest is likely going to win the Academy Award and should win the Academy Award. Let's move on to Best Director. Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, and Justin Triet for Anatomy of a Fall. I am a huge fan of all five of these directors. These five films are in the top 10 films I watched this year. And each of them is crescendoing at this point in their career. These are the best films of each of these directors. Scorsese is one that's harder to say that about, but I also think he is tackling all the aspects of what it is and who he is and what he has made and the industry he's helped create. He's really self-referential and understanding. I think it's crazy to say constraint in almost in a 3 hour 30-minute film, but what he's doing here is extremely um, profound, and I think it is only done by someone like a Scorsese. All of that being said, I've bounced back and forth on which of these films I recognize the director as the person. I made a last minute choice yesterday. I think I've moved over to Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest. I think he has done something here that I don't know that anyone else could do. I don't know that anybody else would do. He made an art house film set just on the outside of Auschwitz during the concentration camp's life and set it in the family of the person who, the commandant of Auschwitz. It is powerful and moving, and I think it is 100% his vision. He had it in his head. He found a way to tell the story. I think this can be said about most of these directors. Justin Triet wrote and directed Anatomy of a Fall. I think what she pulls off is my favorite film of the year. I'm giving away something here. But I think every one of these films is amazing. I think the Academy is likely going to recognize Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer. It is a juggernaut. It is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It's an amazing film. I think this is the hardest choice of all of this year for me. Each of these directors brought something unique and beautiful to this. I think Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma Stone together are what make Poor Things happen. So I don't want to acknowledge Yorgos here. I think it is his best effort. I think I loved Poor Things. I walked out of that theater and I've been talking about it, and I can't wait to watch it again with other people. Best Supporting Actress. Uh, Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Naiad, and Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. Um, I'm going to go direct to my choice and the Academy choice. Every one of these women is deserving of this nomination. Jodie Foster for me is the crux of the entire story of Naiad, even though she is not Naiad. Every frame she's in, everything she's doing, she's carrying the full weight and emotion of that film on her face, in her body, and in the character that she's embodying. I think she's the epitome of a supporting actress. And I would love for the Academy to recognize her. So she is my choice. I think the Academy is going to recognize Divine Joy Randolph for the holdovers. I think she is written as sort of the crux of that story. And I think Divine Joy Randolph fills that role and is so good. I think so much of that movie, she's kind of the center of it. So there's a little bit of difficulty for me. I think she's almost a third lead. I think she's great. I think that she embodies a character who's sad and is trying to get over something, but is so devastated. Her grief and her depiction of grief and her choices are moving. It is what makes the holdovers work. She is the driving force. Let's move over to Best Supporting Actor. Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. This is such a complicated award. I am going to go out on a limb, and I don't think it's going to happen, but I think Robert De Niro is giving one of the greatest performances he's ever given, and he is doing it to support this entire film. I think if you think about the character he's created, every scene he's a part of, almost everything revolves around him in the film. He's sort of the undercurrent, and every time he arrives, he is the focal point of those scenes. I am blown away by what he is able to accomplish in what might be his greatest performance. I think Robert De Niro is one of those actors that can be very scary and intimidating. He is more scary and intimidating in a white suit and round glasses than I've ever seen him be. I walked out of the theater and he and Lily were the two things I was astounded by. I think that the Academy will likely recognize Robert Downey Jr. here. I think his work in Oppenheimer is really good. I think this is a little bit of we're acknowledging that you have come out of your comic book time and are back in serious films being a serious actor. Not to diminish him, what he did in Oppenheimer. I just think it is a complicated story that he is one aspect of support for. There are large portions of this film where he's not in it, and it just makes it a little complicated for me for him to get the supporting acting role. Okay, here we go. Best actress: Annette Bening for Naiad, Lily Gladstone for Kills the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, Emma Stone for Poor Things. Annette Bening was great in Naiad. She's very frustrating, and I think that's the character she's playing. What she's able to pull off physically for this role is really astounding. I'm going to jump over to Carey Mulligan in Maestro. I think she is so glamorous and so a modern starlet. She is great in this film. I almost think it should have been the film of his wife and not him. If we had focused the story around her, I think it would have been more interesting and less biopic. I just don't love biopics most of the time. Emma Stone and Poor Things, you're probably surprised I'm mentioning. I love this film. I think what she's doing here is amazing. I don't know that many other actresses could do this role or would do this role at the level she's at. But I also think she's able to pull this off so effectively that it almost seems like it's not requiring that much effort. It's perception, in my opinion. I love what she's done here. I think Poor Things is one of the top five films for me this year, and she is a huge part of why. Um, so I skipped over two. I'm going to say Lily Gladstone is likely going to be the Academy Award winner for this role. I think she is the center of the film. I think my bigger problem is that there are large portions of the film where I don't know that she is driving. I love what she's doing. I think she deserves to be awarded. I wish they decided to run her in supporting because I think she would have destroyed that category. But she will likely win here, and I think it is a very deserved win. She's amazing. The film's amazing. She is a big reason why the emotional crux of this movie works. Now we're going to go to my choice. Sandra Hüller has been shot out of a cannon this year. Her work in Zone of Interest and in Anatomy of a Fall is unbelievable. Rewatching the film yesterday, I was so moved by how this complex woman is trying to keep a facade of none of this is hurting to the moments where she's alone in the car with her driver, the lawyer, and she's crumbling. The little looks, the care, she has the ability to channel all of her energy and ferocity through her eyes. And also, it is the focal point of her care and love. She's doing something in this film that is kind of like walking a tight wire above a gorge blindfolded. It's a thankless role of a woman who is complicated and difficult, and yet you spend over half of the film trying to decide if she's a killer, and still you want to spend time with her. It it's unbelievable. Let's move over to Best Actor. Uh, Bradley Cooper in Maestro, Coleman Domingo in Rustin, Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers, Killian Murphy in Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction. So, Bradley Cooper was great. I think his flowers for this film would have been director rather than acting. I do think what he does as a physical transformation and the way he throws himself into the role is amazing. But I don't think it beats out some of the other people this year. Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers, I feel like is good. It's standard Paul Giamatti. I don't mean to hold against someone who's so good that they could just do this role. I think that's a little bit of how I'm also feeling with Emma Stone. Paul Giamatti feels like this role was written for him and that he was able to slot into it and effectively um, be an unlikable, likable person. He's done this for years. Um, Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction is fantastic. He is lovable. He is frustrating. He is gruff. Um, his story is so anchored in the world he's a part of, in his family, and the other things that are going on. I think he is less the focal point, even though he's the main actor. Um, it is nothing to be said about what Jeffrey Wright is doing here. I think the way that the character is written is slightly shifting him out of that center focus at times. Uh, I think it's also because there's an amazing cast around this character, and they leave space for one another. So it's almost like one of the best ensembles of the year, in my opinion. If the Academy had a best ensemble, this would have definitely been nominated. So I skipped over two. My hope would be that we could recognize someone like Coleman Domingo and Rustin. The reason I say that is I think that he is giving a 5-star performance in a 3.5-star film. That film would not have worked at all without him. He is dynamite. He's electric. He is the fire that drives that film. He is charismatic and charming and frustrating and unique. And I think what he's doing in that film is special. I think the Academy is going to recognize Cillian Murphy. I don't think this is a bad choice. That man plays a character across many decades. He's the center of Oppenheimer as a film. The film would be very different without him and his calm nature in the way he plays the character. I think it is a way to acknowledge the greatness that is Oppenheimer and to crown Killian Murphy, such a stalwart actor who's been so good for so long in a role that he's very good in. No complaints here. Let's move on to Best Picture. Um, American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and Zone of Interest. So I've talked about most of these films. I want to take a second and say Past Lives, Past Lives, Past Lives, Past Lives. What Celine Song creates here, what she does with the cast that she chooses, Teo and Greta, um, and the actor who plays her husband, I'm sorry, that trio is so moving and understanding and caring and loving. It's beautiful. I think Celine Song is going to be someone we talk about for the next 20 years. I've talked about all of the other films up to this point. I'm just going to cut to the chase. My choice is Anatomy of a Fall. I think it is one of the most astounding films that I have seen in a very long time. Its ability to juggle the characters that are in this film, the languages that are being scavenged across, from English to French to the way that where the person lives, the language the person is speaking is part of creating the tension. When you think about Sandra's character being in another country and being told that she has created this problem and she has followed her husband, it's so interesting when you think about every person she's interacting with is a native born or native speaking French speaker, and she has to constantly context switch, and it makes her feel strained and just off center from the rest of the world just by that subtle choice. I love this film. It is my favorite film of this year. I think it should get this Oscar. I think it would shake up the industry, and I think Justin Triet is a rock star. I think the Academy is going to coronate Oppenheimer. I think this film was as good a biopic about history in America that you could have made, probably. I love this film. I've seen it 3 times, which is a lot of time. I think it's worthy of being an Academy Award winning film. I have no complaints with almost any of the films. I think if we went down this list, any one of 7 of those films, I would think is a very viable Best Picture candidate. All right, that's been my takes. I can't wait for you all to tell me I was wrong. And I look forward to watching the Oscars tonight. I've got a party going off at my house. I've got a cake. I've got sushi. We've got candy, popcorn. I cannot wait for our party. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Robbie the Geek, everywhere online, Geek on Film Com, and our friend John, who will hopefully be back someday soon, is John Hosch. Enjoy the Oscars. Talk to you soon. This has been a Geek on Film podcast. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.